Hello and welcome to another episode of the Outdoor Gibbon podcast. We're in November. Those clocks went back last weekend and you certainly know about it now. The nights are certainly drawing in rapidly. The days are, short-lived at the minute. Obviously, if you want to get out there and get a stalk in, it's a very short window of opportunity. There's none of those late evenings like we were getting in the summer where you could be out stalking till 10, 11 o'clock at night up here in Scotland. But anyway, we're going to carry on with our theme of chatting to different folk from different parts of Europe. We've actually got a returning guest. We had Jose Souto on before, and he told us a bit about himself, his chefing, and what he's been doing with obviously game and venison, and how he's teaching future generations through the college. But now he's working on another bit of an opportunity out in Portugal. And it's really interesting to hear how he's taking sort of the UK and some of our methods over to the Portuguese and really trying to raise that standard of meat quality, which I think is a big issue over there, obviously with the driven hunting and all the rest of it. But we'll get straight into the body of this podcast and have a good listen to Jose. If anything's raised from the end of it, drop us a message. As I said, he's going to release all the information about this at the Stalking Show. So enjoy this podcast. Hello and welcome to the Outdoor Gibbon. We have a returning guest. We have got Jose Souto. You may have listened to him before, but this time we've got him back because he's got some really interesting information about actually another European country. Obviously, you've noticed that in the podcast we're starting to talk to our European guests, so I thought this will be a really good one. But before we start that, we're going to catch up with Jose about what's been going on this year and pretty much since the last time he was on the podcast. How are you doing, Jose?
Hiya, Peter. Thank you for having me back. It's been really good. It's been a busy summer, really busy summer. And right from Christmas all the way to now. I mean, I can't remember. When did we last do our podcast? It was a while ago, wasn't it?
We were almost probably about 18 months ago we got you on. I think, we had a good long chat there. We talked through the birds of prey stuff that you do, stalking and everything. Obviously, since then, we've had the Stalking Show, which we were at. Some good competitions there, and I think that was probably one of the best shows of the year, to be honest.
Yeah, we did quite a few firsts at the Stalking Show this year, and hopefully next year we'll do a few more. We did the competition, breaking down the haunch of venison, which was really well received. In actual fact, we only had 20 places, and we could have had another sort of like 8 places, in that. Unfortunately, we just don't have time to do it. Do anymore.
Yeah.
That will continue next year. We've got another competition lined up for next year, which we will be basically publishing. It's probably after Christmas. We'll be doing some videos on that and showing what we're asking people to do this time. And we've got some really good prizes for that. And then we did one of the demos that we did was basically the 6 loins of each of the deer species, which was phenomenal. We Rachel and I basically sous vide cooked, so we water bath them. So the reason we did that is we wanted them to be exactly the same, all of them, and then pan fried them, just a bit of seasoning, and then cut them. And as we were explaining about each of the individual species, we allowed people to basically to taste it, and that's a first. Yeah, that's the first time that's been done. Have them all in one place, and thanks to the guys at Lincolnshire Game that supplied all 6 species for us to be able to do that.
Fantastic. No, because there was a lot of venison as well, I think, at the end of the day, and I remember eating quite a lot of venison sandwiches, and it was very good. And then obviously we've come to the summer, which we've just had, which was the big game fair down in Oxfordshire, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yep. That was,
saw you on stage doing a few demos there.
Yep, that was both those 2 shows are sort of like I love doing both of them. The Stalking Show is getting bigger and bigger every year. Obviously, the game fair is massive, but the Stalking Show is getting bigger and bigger every year. And I love doing both shows. I love the people that come to them, the people that are really interested in what you're doing, the demonstrations basically that we're doing. You have people basically that want to be there. They want to learn. They want to look at what you're doing. They want to find out basically sort of new tips of how they can cook stuff, and lots of great questions. And nice to see lots of familiar faces at both shows. So it was good.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. Just watching the couple of demos you did, they were packed solid, literally, and I mean that it was standing room at some points to actually see what was going on in there. Now, there is one question I'm going to throw at you: is normally at all of these shows there's always a deer breakdown, but I didn't see one this time, or it wasn't on the menu.
Yeah. BASC decided that basically this year we were going to change the deer dem, and we did is basically we had a guy who's basically a game butcher, who I can't remember his name right now, forgive me, Curtis Pitts and myself, and we had a loin and a haunch of venison, which we basically broke down into different ways that we basically do that. A few people have asked me about the deer breakdown. Wasn't my choice. They wanted to do it that way. Hopefully next year we can maybe do that same demo again, and we can do the deer dem again, because I think the deer dem is something that basically people look forward to. People have asked me about it. Quite a few people have asked me about it, about why we didn't do it this year. There's no reason in the fact that basically some of the guys at BASS decided that they wanted to do a little bit of a change, which understandable, but I personally I think it's the detriment to that dem, because I think that dem is an interesting dem that everybody loves, and everybody enjoys coming to. I mean, I've been doing that dem for a long time. Mike and I, you did it together, and Mike did it before me, and everybody loves it. And it's still a packed house every time we do it, and people asking questions and people looking at it. So and it's breaking down a deer in an hour and 20 minutes. I think that we do it, basically from full fur, head on, feet on, the whole thing, and explaining all about the shooting and the, basically the where to shoot it, what happens, all that sort of stuff is great. I enjoy doing it. I really enjoy it. It's a real heavy workload to do on stage, and it's a taxing dem, both that one and the wild boar. But yeah, I enjoy doing it, and hopefully we'll do it again next year.
No, I think you're right. I think it is one of those ones. It is a crowd drawer, because there's a lot of people out there that they shoot a deer and they still YouTube and things like that. But actually to see somebody do it in the flesh makes a big difference. So yeah, a bit of a shame. But anyway, we'll move on from that. The next question is, you've obviously been busy as well, because anybody that's watching or listening to this will have seen you all over social media. You've made a few films, obviously with the guys from Field Sports. You've done something again with Alex and TacCam, was it? I think so.
TacCam, yeah.
TacCam. Shall we talk about that one?
Yeah, but I mean, I've did 3 films over the summer with Field Sports. We did one with Jeff Garrett, pigeon shooting, which was phenomenal. Jeff Garrett's basically a legend in that field, and someone that I basically sort of have watched from afar, and to meet him and go out with him was phenomenal. I play at pigeon shooting. Jeff is just incredible. I mean, he turned up with 5 dead pigeons for his decoys. I turn up with a bag of pigeons on my back, right, and like all these things, and I'm thinking, is that all you're going to use? Oh yeah, that's all I use. Yeah. I mean, the guy's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I learned a lot from him. Then my good mate Paul and David Wright, we got together again after last year. We did the roadback for the game fair where we did the film, and we unfortunately came up sort of empty-handed, and I shot a deer a few days later once we did the film. And this time we went to a piece of land that I've got in Norfolk, and we had an afternoon stalk. And it was great. You couldn't have written it better. I mean, it was a phenomenal evening stalk. Saw lots of deer, and we bagged one each. We bagged 2 roebucks each, one roebuck each, and it was I mean, I got to try his new Seiko 90. So he's got the one that was replacing the Finlight, which is the 90 Adventurer.
Is that still a thumb hole stock type of affair? Or
that's just a straight straight stock as normal. I took my Seiko 90, because I haven't actually taken my Seiko 90 out on what I filmed with the Field Sport guys out yet, but my Hunter, and I wanted to use that. But when I saw Paul had the newer one, I thought, well, I'll try that and see what it's like. And I'll tell you what, awesome little rifle, and it's a 243.
Right.
And he was using some great Seiko ammunition that have basically been worked for 243 now. We're back to basically 243 being an efficient round for shooting, especially roe deer and muntjac deer. I would suspect basically, I haven't seen it shoot anything larger, but I mean, very, very effective. Yeah, from good distance. I think Paul shot his deer at 130 yards. I think I shot mine 120. But we both took neck shots, and basically they went straight down. There was no messing about. Great.
And that's a non-toxic 243 round,
Non-toxic,
isn't it?
non-toxic 243 round, which is great to hear that. I mean, my 75 as I've said to you before. I think I've had a few problems of basically trying to get something that will fit it, to basically make it. And I'm still really looking for something that will fit it. I spent a lot of money on bullets to find that they don't work. Yeah, they're not.
It's the twist rate in the old 243. Yeah. It was designed for a 75 grain bullet at the end of the day, and it was designed for a 75 grain lead bullet. And to flip it up, because obviously these non-toxics they're a lot longer, and I think that's the problem.
I mean, I must admit, I've always shot 100 grains through my 243, and the reason being is because I used to shoot 75 grains in down here, especially for a lot of woodland stalking, and then when I go to Scotland, I'd up it to 100 grains, and then in the end, probably laziness, I decided just to stick with the 100 grain. And I used to shoot 100 grain Normas in it, and they've been brilliant, absolutely spot on every time I've taken the rifle out. I would love to find something that basically would fit that rifle, basically, because that rifle is sort of, that's my first stalking rifle. I've had it for a long time. I was considering getting rid of it, and I think I've said it on a few other interviews that I was, up until the point that my son shot his first 2 deer with it, and then that will never leave the house.
Exactly.
My 308 now is I mean, the Hunter 308 is incredible. The 90 that I've got is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, I'm pretty much favouring that now above my 243, but it is incredible bit of kit. It looks beautiful, photographs beautifully, which is what we want for the next book. So it's great. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. So let's talk about this Tacticam as well that you've done a video with.
So with Tacticam, we basically did. So Tacticam is a new camera, a trail cam that's coming out.
Okay.
And it's coming from basically the States, and the guys from Tacticam contacted me and asked me. They do a section on their Tacticam website where they have cooking with Tacticam, and they got a load of US chefs that are basically cooking, doing dishes on there, and they wanted something a bit more sort of European. They asked if I'd do a dish, and so I did a barbecue dish, a very simple one that's one of my favorites, that basically is a really easy one to do. I mean, you can cook a fallow haunch in sort of like 25 minutes, 25-30 minutes, which is great, and it's just a case of butterflying it, marinate it, and then cook it on the barbecue. And Tacticam basically asked if I would do it. It's Tacticam Reveal, it's called, basically the cameras, and they are cameras that you can use on a trail cam. They send messages back to your phone. They will basically do video back to your phone, and within sort of like a minute of something passing by the phone, you can see it all on there. It's a great bit of kit. I've got 2 of them. I've messed about with them. I must admit, I'm not as au fait in using them as I should be, probably. I think I need a bit more of a tutorial on them, but I mean, they are good. They're really
I think
good.
A lot of people have now gone for these. I think the Americans like it because if they're out looking for that trophy buck, isn't it, they want the camera to go off, they jump in the truck, they fly down to the forest, and they're ready for it. And actually, I think people in this country now are starting to go, well, actually, I don't want a memory card that's sat in a camera. I want something that sends me an instant, oh, look, there's either a deer or, oh, I've got somebody walking through my woods. And that's where these are starting to play ball. People are actually really getting used to having things sent to their phones, and they want the sort of the live image.
Yeah, I mean, the ones that I've got, I don't know, I've not used trail cams before, but what I have found them to be really well is that I put them outside my house. I live in the middle of nowhere. I'm right in the middle of loads of fields, and I put one at the front of my house, one at the back of my house. I did not know I had that many foxes. Yeah, I mean, it's incredible the amount of foxes that I've got around where I live. To the point where basically now we have a few less foxes, right? Because of basically the camera has allowed me. I mean, the camera was basically sort of like, I was sitting in my front room. I had one in the outside the front of my house, and like I said, there's a track, a dike, open fields, and it's all around me. and a fox went past it, and 1 minute later I got the sting through to basically say the fox was there. I quickly went out with the rifle, got round the corner into the field, and there it was. And basically, yeah, bang, and he's gone. And I've had a few others like that. So it's really surprised me as to how many foxes I had here, and they're not all the same fox, because that's what my wife kept saying. She kept saying it's the same fox going round
and round.
Yeah, and it's not.
No, and I think things like that. If you've got, as I say, people want to know. There's always something they see signs, and they might have a deer, a fox problem, something else, and at least that way, if they've got this persistent issue, at least these cameras are giving you that update. Whereas the old trail cams I use, I go and stick them out, and maybe a month later I'll go and pull the information in, and you look and you go, oh, there was a fantastic buck, or I've had a load of foxes come through, and you're not there. Whereas that's actually like a live update, isn't it?
The good thing as well, I mean, for deer management, it's quite good, but basically seeing how many animals you've got in a particular place, especially if you've got a ride where the animals are crossing through, especially fallow, when they're crossing through, you can see where they're going from one wood to another, and they're using a particular path all the time. If you put the camera on there and you put it on there for sort of a week or two, you can see the movements of the animals, basically, and how many you've got. So it's a great tool for deer management.
100%. Okay, so the other thing is the exciting bit, which we're really the bones of this podcast that we're going to talk about, is you've been doing a lot of work in Portugal.
Yes.
Now, some people don't really, I don't know if our listeners know, but obviously Portugal's quite a big area for hunting, and they don't just do rifle. You've obviously got bow hunting as well as allowed out in Portugal, for anybody that didn't know. Obviously I like my bow hunting, so we're going to talk how Jose has been working with an estate out there, and I think I'll just hand it over to you and you can tell us what you've been up to.
Yeah, so basically the estate is a place called Vale Fortoso. Vale Fortoso in Portuguese into English it translates as Valley of the Ferns.
Okay.
So it is a very, very famous hunting estate that was the kings of Portugal, basically back sort of 300-400 years ago, used to hunt. And then it basically, the kings of Portugal, sort of after they left Portugal, basically because there was obviously a Republican revolution, it was taken over and bought by a firm of bankers, and the firm of bankers had it for many, many years. And this estate is basically, it's not a little estate, it's 20,000 acres. So it's quite a sizable estate. And they mainly had Monterias on there. So Monteria, for the listeners that don't know what that is, it's all driven shooting. So basically the animals you're taken out in the morning, you're placed in individual areas, quite away from each other. And the areas that you're placed in are very picturesque, beautiful, on tops of mountains and stuff like that. And then you have a panoramic view of ground above in front of you. And as the animals are from miles away, they're basically being pushed through with dogs. And as the animals run past you, you shoot them. It's a little bit, for us in the UK, seems a little bit sort of weird, because obviously you're shooting a rifle at stuff that's running. Whereas obviously we're very used to basically just sitting there and getting a good aim on one. So that's what this estate was used for many, 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 many years. The guy that basically contacted me to go out there, he had a look at the books, both my books, and he read the books through a friend, and basically asked me if I'd go out there, contacted me and asked me if I'd go out there and have a look at the estate and have a look at what they were doing with the estate. And he wanted to basically step back from Monterias, from driven shooting, and to basically present game in a different way, more along the lines of what we do here in the UK.
Okay.
And along the lines of what I've set out in the book. So he asked if I'd go out there. I went at Easter time. The estate has been, after the estate was bought by the bankers had it for many, many years. And then what happened is, during the financial crisis of basically all the banking firms, the bankers basically lost the estate. They went bankrupt. The estate went into administration. It's got 2 hotels. One of the hotels was basically closed down, and 300 people lost their jobs. And the other hotel, which is a slightly smaller hotel, was left open, which is right next to the estate. and that was kept going by the government, the receivers, and it was just kept going to basically pay the wages of the people that were there. And the same with basically the Monteria side of basically the estate. It was just sort of just kept rumbling along.
I was going to say,
Nothing
because Monterias are, it's a fairly big thing, the amount of dog handlers you have and everything that goes with it. It's not like just a day out stalking where it's you and a guide.
No,
it's a huge thing. It's not bigger than a pheasant shoot. It's a massive team of guys out there with hundreds of dogs working all at the same time, and you've got people picking game up and all sorts of things. It's not a small project, is it really?
No, it's a big thing. It's obviously a very cultural thing. It's like, fox hunting here. There's a lot of tradition that basically goes through it and everything else. So anyway, that was kept like that, sort of just ticking along, if you like, until the guy that I'm working with now bought the estate, and the owner now basically bought the estate and from the government. And now he then basically decided he wanted to sort of change the parameters of everything. So we were asked to go out. I went up with my wife and my son, and we went to the estate and basically had a look at it. And there comes a time when everybody tells you about a place, and they tell you about how good it is and how big it is and how beautiful it is and how this sort of stuff. And people were telling me this, and you always think to yourself, well, it's never that as they paint it.
Yes, yeah.
This is the one instances in my life when I've turned up and it was 10 times better than what people were describing to me. I mean, it's a phenomenal place. The owner has basically, the first thing he's done is he made loads of connecting basically tracks throughout the estate, so that basically they can get to anywhere on the estate, and improved tracks that had been lost, because some of these tracks are quite mountainous. They're right up in the mountains. I mean, I think the highest point of the estate is 2,400 feet above sea level. So it's quite high. Yeah. And it's very mountainous. They're up there. You're talking about things like, rocks and basically just sheer cliffs and all that sort of stuff, and pine trees.
So let's try and set the picture for everybody listening. Does this estate go right down to the coast, or is it an inland?
No, it's inland.
Estate? Okay.
So it's basically 2 hours and 40 minutes from Lisbon. If you go from Lisbon, you draw a straight line straight across horizontally. It's on the border with Spain. So basically, the estate. There is a river, and you sit on the top of this sort of halfway up the mountain. You look down and you see the river, and Spain's the other side of the river, and this side is Portugal, which is really weird because, like, if you cross it's 200 meters from the front of the hotel to Spain, and if you cross the river, and there's no border, it's just drive straight through. But when you cross the river and get into Spain, within 10 minutes of getting in there, all of a sudden your watch changes to an hour ahead. It's weird. It's so weird because Portugal has the same timeline as we have.
Yes.
So basically, it's exactly the same. But it's you're sort of looking at Spain and saying they're 1 hour ahead of us.
Absolutely. It's that bit of land that, like, I could have lunch here and pop across and have lunch again, or have lunch over there and come back, kind of thing. Yeah.
Well, New Year's Eve must be great because, like, you can have New Year's Eve, then go and have New Year's Eve again.
Crossover, have it in Spain, pop back in. Portugal's celebrating now. Oh, fantastic. So 20,000 acres is a fair size. It's a typical sort of, it's almost to the size of like Scottish estates kind of thing, but I bet you the landscape is something completely different with being in Portugal.
Obviously it's very, very mountainous on that sort of side. It's there's very little open ground. It's a lot of pine trees, a few open areas, not many. Eucalyptus plantations, which they're trying to get rid of because they don't want eucalyptus there. They want to go back to basically natural product. It's sort of like the only way I can describe it is basically whenever you're watching those videos basically from Canada, and they've got these bushes which are, I forgot what they call them now. What do they call the bushes where basically the moose are all running around in?
I know what you mean. I know exactly the word, but it's up here we call them like the gorse bushes and stuff like that.
Yeah, but they're not gorse because this isn't gorse. This is basically there's no needles or anything basically as you're walking through it. It's more like
let's just call it brush kind of thing.
Brush, yeah. it's sort of brush. But you can walk through this brush, and there's a lot of that in certain areas. I mean, every area. I mean, I've been there 3 times now, and every time I go, I've gone to a different area that I hadn't seen before. And it's and the amount of animals there is incredible. What you've got to remember is that during the time that the bank held it, because they weren't doing large scale Monterias, there are a lot of animals in there.
Yes,
there's a heck of a lot of animals. There's actually too many animals. They've got a license to basically shoot out a season because they need to bring down the actual numbers of the animals that are in there.
I was going to say the numbers will have gone crazy, won't they?
Yeah. The estate is, so it's basically fenced, the 20,000 acres, and it's broken into, I think it's 4 large areas. It might be more. I'm not sure. But when you go in past the fence, you'll never see the fence again. I mean, it's completely wild. I mean, if you were to go in on foot, you could get lost in there. If you wanted to go in on horseback, you could walk. You could go with a horse for a day and not see basically any fence or any person. It's incredible. It's just the animals that are there at the moment are wild boar. There's a lot of wild boar. There's mouflon, a lot of very good mouflon, which I've seen basically up on the mountains. Red deer, Iberic red deer, which are very different to basically Scottish red deer. Fallow deer, roe deer, and there has been a few sightings of ibexes. And which is not difficult, because if you look at where Portugal is and where this place is, about 30 miles away, there's a stronghold of ibexes. So for those ibexes to come from 30 miles, and it's all wild. There's no farms in between. It's all wild countryside.
Yeah.
So a few ibexes have been spotted on the estate, but nobody's got a picture of one yet. They're basically, this is the thing, basically have seen them, but not those got pictures. So there's all of that. There's lynxes on the estate as well.
Wow. Okay.
And there's a whole wealth of other animals, basically that are on there. Mongooses, badgers. Oh God, what else is there? There's a bit of everything, really. I mean, it's just an incredible estate.
I was going to say it's a wilderness that's basically been not really managed, and it's just it's kind of flourished, but it's fenced, so they're in there. But you were saying the river, so some of these animals can obviously just get out and cross to Spain across the river then.
Yeah, but they don't. They basically tend to stay within the because it's so big.
Yeah.
You have even with fallow deer that are transient, because it's so big, the fallow deer tend to basically sort of be within that area. They tend to stick there. I mean, when you're driving around, as you're driving around, you're seeing sort of like herds of fallow deer of like sort of 30, 40 fallow deer, and it's like the Serengeti. They're sort of like all running off, and then all of a sudden you'll see sort of like 5 or 6 mouflons sort of run off into the distance as well, and it's incredible. I mean, the rivers, as you're driving through the rivers, when we were going the first time I went, one of the kids of the owner, he asked his dad to stop the car, jumped out of the car, and I thought, what's he doing? He ran over to the river, and there's terrapins in the river. And they're natural, basically terrapins, and they've got Hermes tortoises on the estate as well. So there's a real massive wildlife.
I was going to say, sounds
black
great.
Vultures, griffin vultures. We actually, this last time I went out, we shot quite a few deer, and everything that was basically left over from deer, I was taking up onto the hill, dumping it, going for a drive, and coming back and watching all the vultures basically eating all of their stuff, which is great. But black vultures, griffin vultures, and there are also Egyptian vultures, which are sort of quite endangered, but they fly, their migration path goes straight across the top of the estate. And they've also had lammergeiers come into the estate as well, which are the bone crushers, or bearded vultures as they call them.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, I mean, it's a mass wealth of wildlife there. There's another part of the estate, the area of the on the side of the estate, because the owner is very, very much into rewilding. And sort of, so on one side of the estate, they've got at the moment 1,000 acres that's basically been partitioned off, and that 1,000 acres, they've got now 7 European bison in it. And they're the first 7. There's going to be 36 in total European bison that are basically going to be in there, and there's also going to be some other animals which are going to put in there, all animals that were found in Portugal. So, and one of the ideas is to do a load of educational stuff and also tourism stuff, where people will come and stay at the hotel. They'll have like a European safari where they can go in and have a look at all these animals, and then also then be taken up into the mountains of the hunting sides of the estate to see some of the wild animals that are basically running around. There's plans for some what they call in Portuguese and in Spanish, they call them buitre comedors. And a comedor is basically a dining room. So it's a vulture dining room.
Okay.
And the idea is that the vultures, basically, they're going to dig a big, massive hole. They're going to build a room or a container into this hole. And then that container will have basically double glass all the way around it. There'll be steps going down into it. It'll all be air conditioned. And then you'll be able to go in there, sit in there, and the guys will feed the vultures around it. So basically, you'll be on eye level with the vultures as they're eating. To be able to see these vultures. It's going to be incredible when they do it. Absolutely incredible. So they've got a lot. I think they're in the middle of getting the licensing for 2 of those. The idea with the rewilding side is really to the heart of the owner, because basically he wants to see these animals basically that were once there in Portugal, do a load of educational side of it. It's really important that these animals are given a sort of like a leg up back into it. They're looking at helping the lynxes. I mean, they're just about to do a project where they're trying to help the rabbit population, to basically stimulate the rabbit population, so that, because lynxes predate mainly on rabbits. And so they basically want to increase that population so that the lynxes will come back of their own accord. And there have been sightings of lynxes there. So hopefully by helping them, they'll be able to basically do that. So it's quite a lot of work on that.
Yeah. Does Portugal suffer, as like obviously the UK's rabbit population is pretty decimated because of, obviously we've got Mixie and we've now got the blood disease. Is that something that Portugal's being hit with heavily, or is it there or not as bad?
Portugal and Spain have basically been hit heavily with that on both sides. Although there are some areas where the rabbits are starting to come back, and they have had reintroduction programs. Because obviously, rabbit is seen very differently in Portugal and Spain than it is seen in the UK. In the UK, we see it as a pest species. Out there, it's seen as a very, very, a species that everybody wants to eat. It's a delicacy out there.
It's still on the menu.
And it's if you've got a rabbit shoot, it's like having a pheasant shoot. Guys will basically pay to shoot rabbits. Right. And so they try to help them, basically by not shooting, same as we would with grouse, allowing populations to rise, looking at populations and reintroducing populations where you've got populations where that disease has hit them and they've survived. And if they've survived, then they've got some sort of immunity. So allowing those guys to basically breed and produce more. It's a natural animal. I mean, all rabbits in the world basically came from southern Spain. Basically the Romans took them from southern Spain and took them around. And the same is of the hair, the brown hair. The brown hair was taken from that part of the world. They've got quite a lot of brown hairs on the estate. In Spain, I think there are 3 subspecies of brown hair in Spain. They have up in the north of Spain, they have the European brown hair like we have, and then there's 2 others which are slightly different. They're smaller and longer. But on the estate there's quite a lot. Well, when I went there in Easter, there was a heck of a lot. I mean, this time now when I went, it's a little bit different. The conditions are different, and I didn't see as many. But when I went at Easter, there were loads. They were all over the place.
I'm assuming, obviously, this time of year, it's probably fairly well grown up. There's a lot of covers grown up, and you've got grasses and things like that. No?
Well, you'd say that, but then obviously they have a lot of heat to contend with. So basically, there's not a lot of rain. All the grasses are basically being eaten by the deer. And so there's not particularly a lot of cover on that sort of side. What they do suffer with, hares especially, not so much rabbits, but hares and partridge suffer with, is predation by wild boar.
Really?
Wild boar will eat partridge eggs and they'll eat leverets. They'll just go through and hoover them up. If you've got a lot of wild boar there, then you have serious problems with wild boar. I mean, when I went the first time, I was testing the new Steiner thermal when I went out there. And the C36, I think it's called. I can't remember now. But I tested it. Well, I took it out to Portugal to test it out there. And in one particular field, we saw 2 sows, and we were watching these 2 sows, and the wind was the right way. So we got quite close to them, and we were just watching them, and they had piglets, so we weren't going to shoot. We were watching them coming across this field, and I put the thermal up to my eyes, and there were 26 wild boar within the wood and these ones that were on the outside. It was incredible the amount of numbers of wild boar that there were there. So there are quite a lot of wild boar
Well,
there.
I think what is it? They can just they just breed. They're basically they can just breed and breed and breed. And I think I was talking to one of my German guests recently, and they've got big problems. And then chatting to one of the American guys, they're out there shooting them in the cornfields and all the rest of it. So I think people like the idea of wild boar and people want it in this country, but it's like really you don't, because the devastating effects that they can do. It's just phenomenal.
I mean, I've seen the damage that they've done to certain areas of the estate. I mean, it's like there's been a plough through the middle of the field. And I don't know in northern Spain, where my family comes from, as a boy, from the age of basically 11 till I was 17, I went every single summer to northern Spain, and I never saw a wild boar. Never saw any damage from wild boar. Never nothing. Recently, sort of like within the last 2 or 3 years, I went back there. And I went to some of the fields sort of like that I used to sort of frequent and had a look round. And oh my God, I said to him, what's this? And he said, it's wild boar. It's just what's happened is, especially out in Spain, in northern Spain, there was always a tradition of taking the leaves from the woodland to use it as bedding for the animals. Yes. So they would take basically oak leaves, because basically mainly oak forest there. So they would take oak leaves and use that as bedding. Now, because they've stopped doing that, everything's become overgrown in the woodland, and of course that's given a haven for the wild boar, and the wild boar have just multiplied ridiculously. They become nocturnal, and you don't see them during the day.
That's a big problem. So let's go back to obviously the park. So you discussed that he's got 1,000 acres that he's got some bison in at the moment and other deer. You've got potentially 4 areas for hunting in it. So what sort of, let's talk about it. I'm assuming, what sort of hunting could people come and do if they wanted to come to Portugal?
So basically, we've gone away from Monteria. The estate is now all stalked. Even the wild boar is stalked and basically shot under moonlight at night or with thermals. Nothing is there's no Monteria anymore. Why, you might ask? Well, the reason being is because when I was out there the first time, the owner basically said to me, obviously he's read the books, and he said to me, is there that much difference between basically an animal that's been shot in Monteria and an animal that's basically been stalked? Excuse me, you must excuse my coughing, but because I've been out there for quite a while, the air conditioning plays havoc with my chest, and basically I end up with this cold that it takes me a while to get rid of.
No worries.
But so while I was out there, before I went, I asked the gamekeeper to shoot a young fallow buck, and then basically to have it hanging in the chiller sort of when I turned up, so that I could do a demo on skinning, do a demo on breaking down, and also I could cook some. And we did a taste test to look at the differences between basically a stalked animal and a Monterey animal, and it's massive. Their thing is that a game is tough. You can only stew it, and it's a very strong flavour.
Yes.
And that is the whole essence of basically game in Portugal and Spain. That's how everybody sees game. You cannot cook it like a steak, or pan fry it and sort of run it through the oven, or take a haunch and cook it on a barbecue. You can't do that.
No.
And the reasons for that is because you consider with a Monteria, basically the guys are all put out first very, very early in the morning. The animals are run through. You're shooting at the animals that go through as they go through. Sometimes you get a clean kill. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes the animals are shot 2 or 3 times. A lot of the time they're gut shot. The animals go down. You cannot go and bleed that animal, right? So basically the animals go down. You stay where you are, because basically for safety's sake, you can't go anywhere near the animals. Sometimes those animals are basically lying there unbled for anything up to about 4, 5, 6 hours. Later on, they're picked up, and we're talking a country that's quite warm. The animals are picked up. They're taken on the trucks back to the yard, every side, where they display all the animals. Sometimes they don't even grolic them when they're displaying them.
No.
Then a vet comes, and then they grolic them, and the vet basically has to do an inspection on them, to stamp them basically fit for human consumption. Here in the UK, there's no way that would happen, right?
No chance.
There's no way that would happen. No chance of basically, I mean, all of us that are stalkers, and that shoot animals for food, we see it as food, you'd be cringing at that, anything like that basically would happen. So what we wanted to do is basically try to set up a system whereby the animals are looked at as food, and they've got the highest quality of animal that we can possibly have. So what I did is, after I came back from Portugal and looked at everything they wanted to do, I put together a procedure for the larder. They have their own larder, by the way, there. They have an incredible larder. I mean, their intake fridge can take up to basically sort of 70, 80 animals. They've got an area to break down animals, an area to skin animals, an area to vacuum pack and package animals. I mean, it's all there. Everything's there. It was all put into mothballs, and now they've reopened it, and they're doing some work into it to basically get it up to standard, and they're asking to get them for the licensing from that. But the essence is that what's going to happen is, with the animals, we set up this system. Now, in the UK, obviously, we all do our DCS ones, and we do our meat and hygiene certificates and stuff like that. So it means that we can shoot an animal. Once we shot the animal, obviously we grolic it, we bleed it, grolic it, we sign a declaration to basically say the animal's fit for human consumption. We know what we're looking at. We know if the animal, basically, if there's a TB possibility or any other possibilities within the animal. Yeah, we know all that because we do a course. In Portugal, they don't. So what happens is that they are very fidgety about basically anybody doing inspections on carcasses. Valle Fortoso is in an area that has TB on the outside of the area.
Right. Yeah.
But no animal has been found with TB on Valle Fortoso. So basically, it's mainly in the farm animals are on the outside of the estate. So what I put together was a set of rules that we have a ticketing system. A ticket system has 4 tickets, believe it or not. Okay. And so basically, you've got, once you go out shooting, the gamekeepers who are out with the client or wherever, they shoot an animal. The animal obviously goes down. They bleed the animal. They then sign a little ticket. The ticket's got the name of the person that shot it, the keeper that was out with them, the time, the date, all that sort of stuff. What it is, male, female, whatever. And it also has basically on it what the animal's for. If it's for meat, if it's for taxidermy, or if it's for basically for a skull plate. Basically a trophy.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's all basically goes onto the tag for the first tag. Then what happens is that the guys, if they're carrying on shooting, they have a recovery vehicle. The recovery vehicle's basically called on the radio, and the recovery vehicle has a time limit. It has to basically attend the animal within 45 minutes of the animal being bled. Once the call's made. So the guys basically attend the animal. They have a winch on all of their trucks, and they winch the animal out, the suspended grollock. They take out the viscera. Now this stage, I was after basically training all the guys to do their own inspections, but the government in Portugal won't allow it. So we can do the inspections, and we were hoping that we would, if they were asking us to bring anything back, it would be like the old ways. You probably remember it, Peter, but where you used to bring back the liver, the heart, the lungs, and the kidneys. Yeah, the offal, and not the ruminant and the lower intestine and the guts. So, but out in Portugal, they won't allow us to do that. And a vet has to see the whole thing. Now, I don't think that there's a lot they're going to pick up on the ruminant and the lower intestine. I could be wrong here, but I have spoken to a vet out in Spain about it. And he said to me, there's nothing, if you're taking an animal back with the front legs on, the head on, and you've got all of the offal, that they should be able to pick up any disease within any of that. You don't need anything else. But they're insistent that we do. So the way it works is that basically we have these trays with a bag, a liner bag. So we grollock the animal, we drop everything into the tray. We do our visual inspections, because the reason we do our visual inspections is that we don't want an animal that's got TB going back to the larder. So if the guys have had their training for me, if they spot an animal with anything that's unusual or abnormal, I mean, we've put abnormal as in anything abnormal. Then what they do, there's a red ticket, and they put a red ticket on the animal, and the animal's condemned. So that means the animal then basically goes for, if it's got TB, in Portugal, believe it or not, it has to be buried. It not incinerated.
Well, the old-fashioned way in the UK in the UK was to bury it. It was dig a hole and bury it, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Really, and now
yeah,
it's changed to incineration.
yeah. So what we can, if there's other abnormalities with the animal, so say the animal's basically just skinny, or basically it just doesn't look good, or if it's got a broken leg or anything else like broken ribs, and the animal's basically lost the weight. It might be a stag that's been in the rut, that's been beaten to hell when you've shot it, and you're not going to put that through the food chain. So all those animals are red ticketed as well, and then those animals can be used for the vultures. So they're just put out on the hill for the vultures because they're allowed to feed the vultures through that. If the animal's fine, then there is a green ticket, and the guy who's basically attending it, he writes out the green ticket, and he has a declaration on there to say that the viscera was all clean and it's all healthy. And he basically signs that ticket, puts a time on that he basically signs it, put it onto the animal, and then the animal goes straight back to the central part of the estate, which is basically where we have a chiller van, that's in there. So it was like a chiller trailer. So the animal goes into the chiller trailer, and it has to hit that chiller trailer within 90 minutes. It cannot go over 90. So it's the 45 minutes from the call the guy needs to attend, and 90 minutes into the chiller. So then once it goes into the chiller, it can spend basically the grollock is tagged as well with another tag, which has the same number as the deer, so that it corresponds to the deer.
Okay.
So that all goes in there. And then basically the once we've got sort of like 5 or 6, 7 deer right there, then everything is taken to the main larder. Main larder, animals come in, they're weighed, they go into the intake fridge. The vet then basically visits the intake fridge, looks at the grollock, looks at the animals themselves, basically happy with the animal, looks at the heads, looks at oh God, what they call them?
Retrophalanx glands and
retrophalanx glands in the throat. Looks at everything, he looks at everything right with that. And one of the reasons we leave the heads on is so that they can look at all of that. I tend to leave heads on basically for 24 hours because I like the carcass to basically stretch with the weight of the head. I don't like cutting the heads off straight away because I think you get a better loin on the animal than doing that.
Okay.
So basically he does all of that. Then the animals basically go through into the larder, and there's a first room, which is where we skin the animals. But once they're skinned, they go into another room, and in that room, again, following the British way of basically doing it, and a way that Highland Game does as well, we do all basically what's called corrective cuts. So we take 2.5 centimeters off basically where the animals have been cut, for grollicking on each side. We basically recut all of the legs. Basically cut further up with a pair of hydraulic scissors, and then the neck's basically further back from where it's been cut as well. So that what you do by all these corrective cuts, by doing them, what you're doing is you're mitigating any contamination into the carcass.
Basically the stuff from the field that could technically be there, you've taken it out.
And then the animals go into basically then being broken down. They're broken down into either joints, so basically 2 shoulders, 2 legs, saddles, neck, which is then either a vacuum packed hole and goes into basically a freezer tunnel, which freezes it and go into the freezer tunnel, or they're basically then broken down into basically portions that are then go through into another fridge, and the other fridge then packages them into portions that basically where they go out there.
Wow.
And so the whole of this has been set up for the quality of the venison. So we had when I was out there now, we did 4 tastings for venison dishes. We had 2 different journalists come out, and we had a load of hunters basically come out to basically try the product. And everybody has said, oh my God, this is so completely different to what we experience as venison, as basically product. It's a completely different animal. I mean, a lot of them sort of turning around and sort of, oh, it tastes like beef, it's like a good steak, and stuff that we all know, and we forget how lucky we are in this country. And what we've got, and these guys are all, I'm sort of standing there and sort of showing them all this stuff, and I'm feeling a little bit of a fraud because it's like stuff that we do every day here, but it's not something that they've done out there. It's not culturally done. So what we're hoping is that we can build a brand for the venison, and basically start to sort of put the venison in there, start to work with these guys. I mean, these guys have also been working very closely with Lincolnshire Game here in the UK.
I was going to say,
Game have been very helpful and basically sort of helping us. I mean, when I wrote all of the flow charts for all of the work and everything that was going into larder, Lincolnshire Game then basically took them and they did all the HACCPs for it. So yeah, the guys at Simon Trist and Lincolnshire Game are now working very closely with the guys in Portugal to basically help them achieve this, and to achieve what they want to do.
I was going to say, it sound when you describe that process, first question is there any hanging time for the carcass, or is that you kind of made it sound like it was continuous? So it does hang for a bit.
Yeah, so basically the actual trailer chiller that we've got, which is the trailer chiller is in the middle of the estate.
Yeah.
So what happens is it's basically easy to get to from anywhere on the estate within 90 minutes. And the animals will stay in there for 4 days.
Oh, okay, fine. So you're giving that chance to allow them blood to get out.
Yeah. And then they go into the main chiller. And when they go into the main chiller, there'll probably be another 1 to 2 days in the main chiller before the vet comes to basically look at them. So we're giving the animals time to relax, because I also did a test with them. So when I went out this time, I did. I turned up and I had 8 of the gamekeepers that were there, and the main. Sorry, no, so lie. There was 7 main gamekeepers, and then all the underkeepers that were there. So basically there were. There were 8. No, beg your pardon. There was 8 of them in total. We went out. We did all the training first, basically talking about what we were going to do. Then we went out into the field and we shot 16 animals.
Right.
And each I did one to show them how to do it, and then each one of them basically did 2 each, so that they could basically break down and they could grollet the animal, bleed it properly, and look at the differences with it. And then the next day we went to the larder. The larder's not open yet, so because the larder isn't open yet, we could all go in there and basically not have to wear all the equipment in there, because the larder isn't licensed yet. And we went in there. I showed them how to skin them, and they skinned all the deer. And then I showed them how to break them down into basically the primals that we need to break down. I mean, we haven't gone quite with the training to the next stage yet, because we don't need to at the moment. But later on, that will be coming basically on that sort of side. But it's all about promoting quality above all else. I mean, on the 4th day that I was out there, I had a meeting with the ministry vets who do all of the licensing for the larders, and they had been told the processes that I wanted to do, and they were sort of like quite, I don't know if we could do this. It's never been done before. Blah 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 blah. And so I said to the guys, just stop talking to them, and let me talk to them. So I got there. I presented all of the flow charts and everything of the workings of basically what we were doing, how it would work, and I pretty much had it airtight. I mean, if they went, well, what happens there, and I go, this, or what happens that with this, there's everything, and by the end of it, they allowed me to do everything I wanted to do. The only concession that I had to make was that I had to take the whole viscera back to the larder, which I didn't want to do. Their thing as well is that they if an animal has TB, I didn't want an animal having TB going to the larder. They have no problem with an animal that's got TB going back to the larder if then basically there are 7 or 8 animals in there, and then the vet comes along and says that one's got TB, he just pulls that one out, condemns that one, the rest are all right to go carry on through. Now, I would not want an animal with TB in the larder with any other animals.
But they say you can still eat, technically, if you find an animal, you can still eat the meat
animal.
Because the meat isn't actually contaminated, and the spores, as long as it's not pushing the spores out of its lungs, which in theory you've taken out, but you have taken the viscera back. So if somebody compresses the lungs, you pump a load of spores out.
but I just wouldn't want that animal in the larder.
No, absolutely. It's just disease. It's bringing disease into a clean space at the end of the day.
With us, I mean, we're perfectly within our rights to, when the guys basically do the viscera, if they see an animal that has any of the highlighted, things that I've given them, that basically, spots on the lungs, or basically, and the lungs sticking to the side of basically the chest, the white spores on the inside of the chest, or the granules on the inside, the inflamed basically glands, all of that sort of stuff that we've given them. If there's any of that, they condemn the carcass.
Yeah, so exactly.
With us, a TB carcass will never go to things. They have to record it, but it will never reach the larder. So, so that's where we are. I mean, we're at this point where we're sort of like making a brand for this product, which is pretty much the same as the venison that we have here in the UK, with all the standards that we have in the UK. It's the standards that obviously that Lincolnshire Game has. Even now, the setup of the larder with the chill chain within the larders and everything. Lincolnshire Game have been instrumental in doing that. They've been out to the larder. They've helped the guys basically sort of do the flow of work throughout the larder and what they can do with it. So I mean, it's very exciting. To basically have all this setting up. I mean, the owner is desperate to get the license for the larder because he wants venison on the menu in his restaurant. So at the moment, he's buying Monteria venison, which is on the menu in the restaurant, and he doesn't want that. He wants his own venison.
100%.
So that's where we are on that sort of side, and the whole essence of the estate is the rewilding side, the educational side, the helping species basically within this beautiful bit of land that you've got, what species that are basically that lynxes and stuff like that, to ensure that basically they continue and their safety. We're hopefully going to be doing some work with the Egyptian vultures out there, and reintroducing Egyptian vultures if we can get round the bureaucracy that's around that, because there's a lot of bureaucracy. We're the whole essence of the estate is to sort of work around that, and it's all about the quality of the animals and basically working it to the point how we can work it.
So it's basically, guys can go out, anybody could go out there. You're staying in the hotel, you're gonna be on a guided stalk with a stalker or an underkeeper, and whether that's with a rifle or you decide you want to go and bow hunt it. So pretty much
bow hunting and crossbow hunting is basically allowed there as well. So that, and they can do both. The owner actually he does both as well, and he does rifle shooting.
Right.
We will be at the stalking show. We'll be announcing basically all of the information about the estate, the costs of basically going out there, the packages that will be offered onto the estate to be able to go out there. But it's about, let's say, it's 2 hours and 40 minutes from Lisbon. It's what you've got to imagine yourself, right, is going into countryside like you've never seen before, and just wild countryside.
So let's talk the question, because obviously you've travelled out there. I'm assuming you've taken your rifle. How is it for anybody that's listening that's never been abroad with their rifle and they wanted to take something? How is it easy for travel or not?
I didn't take my rifle.
Oh, okay. Right.
I used the state rifles out there. The only reason I used the state rifles was because the only airline that allow you to travel rifles at the moment is EasyJet. So basically, if you can get an EasyJet flight into Lisbon, EasyJet will allow it. Now, how easy is it to travel with EasyJet? It's not too bad, actually, as long as you know the procedure. So basically, you've got to book your rifle on beforehand with EasyJet. You've got a load of paperwork to fill in, and that paperwork basically has all of your serial numbers on it and everything that you're carrying. Ammunition has to go into your case in the hole away from the rifle. I think your bolt needs to go in there as well, away from the rifle. The rifle, once you get to the airport, you've got, I think it's basically 4 sheets of paper. It's a triply piece of paper. There's a white sheet which you keep hold of, and it's got all the information on it, the flight and everything you're on it. There's a pink sheet that goes inside. I think it's a pink one or blue one, I can't remember now. One of them goes inside with the rifle. Once you've opened the rifle, you've shown the rifle, and basically they look at all the serial numbers and everything, and then that goes onto the plane. And then another one accompanies the rifle, and the pilot has to accept that one to basically say there's a rifle on there. So there's 3 bits of paper on there that basically go through it. It's not difficult to do. It's not difficult to do. I had a big mishap when I went to Czech Republic, big mishap. And to the point where when I went out, it was fine. When I came back, I had a policeman that didn't quite understand the procedure, and they're quite gruff in basically Czech Republic, and he insisted that I put the paperwork in with the rifle. And I kept arguing with him, and he kept insisting that it was going through, and he got quite upset about it. So in the end, I put the paperwork inside the rifle, and of course, the 2 bits of paperwork that needed to go to the pilot and with the rifle didn't go. So when I landed in Luton, I sort of looked and waited. The rifle didn't turn up, and I went to the guy and said, there's a rifle. My rifle's on here. And he said, there's no rifle on this flight. I said, yes, there is. And he went, I put it on. And he said, no, there isn't. And then afterwards, when I found out that obviously what I'd said had happened, that basically the paperwork didn't go through. That my rifle spent 3 days at Prague Airport, like spinning around Prague Airport before a pilot allowed it on the flight. Yeah, without me, because it shouldn't be on the flight without me.
I was going to say, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's not difficult to do, but we've got estate rifles on there.
Okay.
I shot a Souto 7mm while I was on there, and there's also Mausers on there, which are basically 3006 and 308s.
Okay.
While I've been out there, I've shot red deer, shot fallow deer, I've shot wild boar out there. I've shot a bit of everything basically out there. It's an incredible place to go. And like I said, when we go to the stalking show, hopefully there'll be a lot more information for everybody.
Yeah.
Possibly owners probably looking at having a stand at the stalking show, so people will be able to talk it. But this is not driven shooting.
No. This is like the next level. If you've shot everything, for example, in the UK, you've done your 6 species and you've done a wild boar and you've run out of things to do, then this sounds like the ultimate place to go, because it takes you to the next level. It's that wilderness adventure, isn't it?
The wilderness adventure. I mean, the breathtaking views that you're going to see, the countryside you're going to see, all that sort of side of what you're going on. And there's some very big trophies there. I mean, there's some really good stuff. There's lowlands, which are sort of like more agricultural lands, which are sort of like rolling hills with cork trees, olive trees, and grasslands.
Okay.
And then there's obviously all the forested areas and basically sort of like mixed brush and stuff like that. There's a bit of everything really there.
It sounds really good. Yeah.
Heck of a lot of fallow deer there. I mean, incredible numbers of fallow deer. I mean, absolutely incredible numbers, and you don't have to go far to basically find them. We had a Polaris, which we were driving up with the Polaris, dropping the Polaris, and then walking, and just walking through basically different areas to find. After a while, I've been there 3 times now, so I sort of know hotspots, areas where basically animals would be. But even those hotspots would like surprise me, with the animals that were there, because you it's not a case of because it's walled you're seeing the same animals all the time. You're not. All of a sudden you'll see something that you haven't seen before. So it's good.
Makes a huge difference.
It is. The place is, so basically the estate is near. If any of the Game of Thrones fans that are on here, there's the new Game of Thrones was filmed at a place called Monsanto. Monsanto is a village on top of a hill in the middle of Portugal, and the estate is not far from there.
Well, that should everybody will now get, as soon as they're listening to this, Google Maps will be up and they'll be searching for that. So fantastic. Well, I think that's a lot of information for people to digest, but obviously they've now got several months, because I think this is where are we now? We're end of August, so I think this will be released probably around September time. So they've got all that time to get through to April to basically get themselves organised, get to the stalking show, find out how to get there, and then come and do this hunt of a lifetime kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, for me, basically, it's one of those places that, if you ever watch any of the Meat Eater videos, so basically where the guys are going out into the wilderness, this is wilderness. I think, I've mentioned to you before, for me, there is nothing better stalking than basically getting out on a hill in Scotland in the middle of nowhere, where you've got that sense of vulnerability from basically just you, the rifle, and you're there. You're on the hill. You might be with somebody, but you're on the hill and there's nothing for miles around. And this is a little bit like that, because there's just nothing for miles around. There's old abandoned houses in the middle of the estate, that you'll find. But you might bump into a fallow deer. You might bump into basically a good quality, basically Iberic red deer. You might bump into a mouflon. You'll never know basically what you're going to see when you're out there. And every time I've gone out, I've seen something different. I've seen different animals. I've seen different stuff. So yeah, it's good.
Fantastic.
Really, really good. It's just a breathtaking place, breathtaking wildlife. The hotel is incredible. I mean, the hotels are fantastic. That's easy pleasing as well. It's got a lovely swimming pool, and
There
it
you
has
go.
got beautiful view as well, basically from
So,
the hotel.
so when you're knackered from walking because you've been dragged around the hillside by some keeper and you're done, at least you know when you get back to the hotel you can relax at the pool, and if you
Well,
don't want to go the next day, you're all right.
well, I did. The first time I went there, the target species for me was mouflon.
Okay.
I love stalking mouflon, and they are very, very, very difficult to stalk. They
Yep.
are sort of. I mean, when I've stalked them in Czech Republic, I've pulled up to the estate, got out of my car, got out onto a little bit of an open ground where I can see them sort of like about 3/4 of a mile away on the top of a hill, and they're all eating grass, and all of a sudden they just lift their head and look at you, and you're thinking, how the hell they see me?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
in the woods, the wind's the wrong way, and they see me. They're so canny, and so the first time I went out there, the estate owner sort of said to one of the keepers, take him out, get him a good mouflon, get him on a really good mouflon. And I've shot a 5-year-old here, which is not quite full curl, but it's here that I shot in Czech Republic. It took me three visits to Czech Republic before I shot it. But out there, we were out and we walked 20k,
Yeah.
right? 10k in the morning, then we basically broke for lunch, and then we had 10k in the afternoon over mountains, and I mean mountains, that had like pine trees growing out the middle of it. I mean, it was incredible. We saw lots of mouflon, lots of them. Did I shoot one? No, because every one I shot, I saw the guy was going to me, no, that's not good enough. No, that's not good enough. We just kept walking away, and we saw a heck of a lot of them. So.
But that's and actually, if you've got guides that are out there that they're picking the right animal, and it's not, they'll be looking for an animal that's the right age to take. Maybe it needs to come off the hill, maybe it's an old one. So yeah, that sounds like it's well managed. That's the most important part.
Yeah, I mean, at the moment there is a lot of animals. Basically, that we need to control some of the numbers on there because there are too many animals.
Yep.
And I think that some of the antler formation on some of especially the fallow, is suffering because of it.
Yes.
So there needs to be basically, but then that's all part and parcel of this great plan to have great quality venison.
Yep.
It's all those animals that are basically going to be taken off and can be used for that. And we can put some great quality venison together. So
no, and that's it. A management plan. It's not an instant thing. It takes a bit of time, but you've got to have the facility up to running so that actually when you do the culls to clear these animals, at least they've got somewhere to go. Well, yeah. I think I won't take any more of your time, and thank you ever so much. But yeah, that's certainly something for everybody to digest. It sounds like a real great place for people to go.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, I mean, a few of the listeners might even take up the challenge and go, and then basically let everybody else know what it's like. I mean, like I said, at the stalking shows when we're going to be sort of like doing some bits and talking a bit more about it.
Yeah.
In October, I think we've got some plans to go out and do some filming. So hopefully there'll be some stuff on Instagram and on social media about the estate and about basically some of the plans on there, and that'll be more of a sort of like, from the beginning going forward, what we've done and how what's happened on the estate and sort of like how it's changed. Because I mean, there is, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of work to do on the estate, but it's in its infancies. But it's great to basically be part of it in its infancies, right? And to seeing what these guys want to achieve, what the owner wants to do, with the rewilding side, the importance of that sort of side, the importance of helping some of these species basically get out in the wild. And obviously a natural harvest from the countryside, which is what we do here. It's just a natural harvest from the countryside of very high quality venison, and probably the highest quality of Spain and Portugal put together, with a process that is non-existent at the moment in any of those countries, right? Which we're pioneering.
You're basically rewriting the game management of these countries and the game production and actually the food chain, really. So it sounds like it's going to be really interesting. Well, anyway, thank you very much, Jose. Always great to talk to you.
Good. Thank you for having me on again, Peter. Yeah.
And we'll catch you soon. Thank you. Well, I really hope you enjoyed that. It's always nice to have a returning guest, and it was quite interesting to find out those bits about Portugal and the types of things that Jose's doing over there to produce a higher quality of meat. Anyway, we are one podcast away from reaching 50 podcasts. I can't believe it, really. So you are really going to enjoy the next one. I'm going to leave it there, and we'll speak to you soon.